Grant, welcome to Camera Conversations, optimised by Pure Sport. We ready?
I'm ready. You ready?
Yes, we were ready before the cameras started, so we need to start talking.
Do it.
So, one of the things that I learned about you is that you had a past life training as a professional dancer.
That's correct.
And I want to understand what got you involved in that space.
Very well read. So what got me involved with that was, I remember when I was younger with my gran, it was kind of watching daytime TV. And it was always Gene Kelly, Fred Astaire. There would be, she'd put on a bit of Michael Jackson because that was quite relevant. And I always liked the idea of it. And I thought, nah, I can't do it. And then I was playing squash with my mates, Gogsy, we called him, but he was Gregor. He wasn't called Gordon, he was Gregor. At Abercorn Tennis Club. And in a nutshell, there was a girl called Natalie Brown. So Natalie, if you're there, it's all right. I never got with you, but it's fine. Fancied the pants off her. And I remember watching her for the viewing gallery thinking, right, well, the only way I'm going to get down there to see her is doing dance. But I wasn't doing ballet. Nah, no doing ballet. It's not happening. So I spoke to Jane, the dance instructor, and she was like, listen, do you want to come to a kind of modern, kind of hip-hoppy type class? I was like, yeah, no, that's fine, because I like Michael Jackson.
A bit more cool.
It was cool. It's the thing you do. I went and I fell in love with it, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I remember, I can't remember the girl's name, but she was kind of like, do you want to do ballet? And I was like, nah, it's not happening. Totally not happening. And after, must have been about a year of doing I went from doing kind of modern dance into jazz, then into kind of tap, but I was crap at that. Called it crap tap. I was absolutely garbage. Ended up doing ballet and I enjoyed it. I really, really enjoyed it. And I stuck at it until I was probably 21, 22. I won a scholarship to a dance school in London, but unfortunately my mother, my dad, they couldn't afford to have me live down there. I'm a twin as well. So it was just one of these unfortunate things. But I think I might have gone far, but unfortunately just the financial part of it and the logistics of it didn't serve me. But I would have went down to London.
There's a lot of sports like that, isn't there? I think tennis is a big one. You see a lot of the kids, they maybe get a scholarship or a golf scholarship to the US.
Yeah.
But it's the scholarship maybe covers the school fees and maybe some of the accommodation, but there's living costs on top of that that need to be accounted for. And many players that make it in those different fields, and I'm sure dance is probably the same. Bank of mum and dad is a really important factor in the success there, which is a real shame because it means sometimes the most talented aren't perhaps the ones that we see at the end. Now, work ethic and drive and all that stuff come into it, but resources are a big pull too.
Humongous, and I think that's where I discovered this hyper focus and this want to do well at something, to be noticed. And I didn't know why I wanted to be noticed. If looking back now, it'd probably be a wee bit of insecurity. But I think that wee bit of insecurity was that driving force, and I discovered so much. I mean, no one in my family had ever danced. Do you know what I mean? So it was quite my dad was great. You know what I mean? My dad was 100% behind me. He wanted me to do it. My mum wanted me to do it. My brother, my twin brother, he found it a bit kind of like, right, well, you can't tell anyone at school because it'll make me look a bit weird. But at the same time, he was so protective. You know what I mean? He wanted the best for me. But when I was down in London, I remember thinking, just this atmosphere, this, you know, I didn't know much about London other than the bubble of Covent Garden and the bubble of Pineapple Studios, the Ardang Academy, and I felt pretty empowered. I can't describe it other than just it was like on and off buttons. And when I was down there and I was doing dance, it just created this
energy
and dopamine. Like, I was like, this is mad, and I love it, and I enjoyed that. I remember one person, it was a dance instructor, saying, you've got mad stage presence, you've got great stage presence. And I think that came from kind of watching guys like Freddie Mercury, Michael Jackson, Fred Astaire,
monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's important we've got role models to not mimic, but to take traits of theirs and use it as ourselves.
Yeah. So I suppose subconsciously I still use a lot of the things that I'd learnt from dance, the discipline, the thick skin. I mean, I took a lot of metaphorically speaking beatings and physically. If we want to go down that avenue, it wasn't a great path to follow in regards to pulling too much of a sob story, but naturally it had its judgments, you know what I mean? It was kind of late 90s, early 90s, so it was quite Yeah, it wasn't recognised as a manly thing to do. Do you know what I mean? And that's the one thing that I found very difficult when doing it. But in regards to that, and flipping it in the positive, I think it certainly created a very strong character in the end, and I think it proved.
Yeah, if people are judging you and pushing back on it,
yeah,
you almost double down and almost you need to prove yourself.
Yeah.
And that can be a healthy carrot and stick
Yeah.
moment. And I know from starting the podcast in lockdown 2020, there was loads of people that were like, what are you doing that for? Like, there's already loads of podcasts out there. You're just a wee guy from Glasgow in your bedroom recording people. And you're thinking, well, you might be right, but what if you're not?
Yeah.
And I've got a phrase I use in the podcast quite a lot. If not you, then who?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that applies to any venture that we put ourselves into.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure somebody else who had a similar start point to me has made a success of this. So if not me, then why not?
Yeah, totally.
These days, it feels like every brand is shouting about how supplements are the answer to everything and all your problems. Before you jump on the latest wellness trend, it's worth remembering the foundations and basics come first. Hydration, good nutrition, rest, movement are the real keys. When you do decide to supplement, however, what you choose really does matter. You know I'm a big fan of removing toxins and unnecessary things from your lifestyle, and I ensure that my supplements are free from additives, artificial flavors, and any unnecessary, dirty, toxic fillers. Personally, having seen many professional athletes and top performers utilize their products, I decided to give Pure Sport supplements a go. Their products are built on science-backed information, minimal ingredients, and they do exactly what they're meant to. Whether it's their best-selling ultra electrolytes to keep you hydrated and energized, their deep magnesium to support with quality sleep, or even their natural testosterone-boosting Tonka Ali, I trust that what they make is developed to care for me and my body. Explore the full range of Pure Sport supplements at the link in the show notes, puresport.co, and use the code CAMBRO10 for 10% off.
Yeah, I always remember when I was working seasons abroad, because I worked in Europe for probably about the best part of about 8 or 9 years. And I worked, my role was a fitness instructor, but I worked within the animation teams who are going around the poolside and annoying you relentlessly. Get involved with the dance, get involved with this, get involved. And I loved it.
It's like activities rep, isn't it?
That's exactly what it was. But my job was fitness, and what I loved about it I got involved with everything. Christ, I was doing Nagadoo and the bloody Music Man as well, so it didn't bother me that part of it either. And I really enjoyed it, and I think that came from that performance aspect of doing dance and performing arts and stuff like that. But I remember it was a guy, David, who was part of a company called E3 Consultancy, and they put the entertainment product into for example, Thomas Cook, and he said that it didn't matter regarding your skill or your qualifications. They're there for you. Do you know what I mean? So you as a person. And that's the one thing that I took from seasons, and I took from, I would call it my dance days, is that, all right, you can have a high level of skill, but it's the individual that's the selling product as well. Do you know what I mean? They were there for you as an
people
individual.
Buy from people is a famous phrase, yeah.
Yeah, so I always recognised that about myself. I thought, well, I know I'm a decent person. I'm obviously all right at what I do because I'm filling up the numbers. I wouldn't say I'm the most talented, but I think that's a Scottish thing, and probably a British thing actually, is we seem to put ourselves down, don't we? Now I'm learning not to do that as much. Do you know what I mean? I always say I'm good at what I do. You know, I'm not there to compare myself to anyone else, but that's the one thing that I learned from seasons: just be unapologetically yourself, and people will love you for just being you. And that, going back to my dance, yeah, I used to apologise, or I used to kind of shy away from it. So it's really interesting that you've brought that up, and I'm glad you've brought the dance up actually.
Yeah, you want to be a little bit unapologetic about what it is that you do and what you're interested in and what you care about. And I think if more people were like that, we would probably be not necessarily happier, but more willing to do the things that we care about without fear of somebody pointing and laughing. Yeah. And I think I'm early 30s, I think you're mid 30s, and considering the generation that I would group that in, I think your experiences at school were a lot firmer than they are now. And you could argue we've gone too far the other way where people are mollycoddled now. Mm-hmm. But at school, a point of difference was a real indicator of like, you're going to get a really hard time here. Yeah. And you, like, animalistically, we don't want to be isolated from the tribe. So choosing to do dance, choosing to start whatever it is that's a bit different from the average person. Yeah. You put yourself out in the open and open to criticism that could maybe stop you if you're not thick enough skin to keep going. That's right. And I think also it's having that, what I've learned over the years is having that whether it's your family or whether it's friends or whether it's just, family or friends, it's having that backbone, do you know what I mean, to keep you level-headed,
at times. You know what I mean? I had a conversation actually the other day there. It was with one of my brother's friends, his mum and dad, or his mother and father-in-law, and says, "Oh, you were on that TV show SAS with There's Wins." And my brother says, "Hold up," says, "My job's to keep his feet on the ground." And the boy turned around and says, "But he done all right on it." He says, "I know he done all right on it." He says, "But my job's to keep his feet on the ground." So yeah, it's not underselling yourself, but I'm very glad that I had a family, or I have a family that keep me grounded, but at the same time encourage me. And I think that's really important as well, as having a strong foundation as well. And I'm very lucky to have had that.
It's the balancing act between the two, isn't it? Because as you mentioned, you hinted at Scottish and British culture being a little bit on the conservative side, not from a political perspective necessarily, but like conservative with a small c, in terms of don't do that, that's risky. Oh, you don't want to push the ball out too much, you might get hurt. Or you've got a steady thing here, this job or this life, don't risk it.
Yeah.
And it's having that balancing between let's go for it and push onwards, and you've got people in the background that, like you say, keep your feet on the ground so you don't become an egomaniac or your head can still fit through the door.
Yeah. And I often think it's the repercussions that might happen to them as well, because often they have to carry the backlash. You know what I mean? I've had an enormous journey with my mental health, and I think what they worry about, probably like many families do, is when you've got somebody that's so driven and focused and almost hyper-focused. You know, there's a lot of success, but there's a lot of stumbling blocks, and often those stumbling blocks people don't know how to deal with. And for many years, I didn't know how to deal with it. So I would go running back to, for example, my dad or my mum or my brother, and be like, "Right, hold on a minute, right, what do I do here?" And they'd be like, "Well, Grant, you can't push yourself to that level, get to get to that top tier, and then be thinking, right, well, hold on a minute, I don't know how to deal with that," and then run back. So I think often for the family as well, as it's I'd often in my younger days looked at them as the kind of fallback net, and quite often that can be quite exhausting for them. So. But at the same time, if you don't take risk, like you've said, then you're kind of in this vicious circle of unfulfillment and boredom. And
and I think there's a lot of people in that camp just now. Where they're maybe just ticking the box, pen pushing, whatever term you want to use, clocking in, presenteeism in their work that they're not feeling fulfilled in. And that's where escapism, like alcohol, drugs,
totally
nowadays. Vaping, TV, porn, you name it. We've got so many distractions which we can go into. And we have a big generation. There's something like 550,000 16 to 24-year-olds in the UK that are guys that are in the NEET category, which is not in education, not in training. So they've decided not to do anything. Like, pick the stereotype, and this is really bad, but in the mum's basement, playing video games all day.
Right, gamers, I think they're called, aren't they?
But they're just isolating themselves away, and those are people that are taking no risk. Because a lot of them fall into what's called the incel category, which is involuntary celibate, where they feel like they can't get a female partner either. And there's almost like a withdrawal from society because they're like, it's not made for me. So they'll take no risk whatsoever. So they won't try for a job, they won't try for a place at college or uni, or they won't put themselves out there. And sometimes the clips on TikTok, they won't listen to a full podcast, but they'll see those, and I'll get a bit of backlash from them talking about self-development, accountability, looking after your body, looking after your brain, looking after your business, trying to be fiscally successful for you and your family. And that triggers people that are in that withdrawn camp. They're like, it's nice for you, it's okay for you, but I think empowering content should hopefully raise all ships. The rising tide should carry them all up. So there's a strong category of that in the UK, and that's growing. I think it grew by 15% since the pandemic.
Wow, I was going to bring up the pandemic. I often thought it might have been something to do with that. I think there's slight complacency and a wee bit entitlement from the pandemic. I understand it was a really hard chapter for lots of people, but let's be honest. I think there was. I mean, I noticed that a lot of the young guys that I work with on the bins now. Binman, Bob, Ninja Binman as I call myself, and
I love that nickname. I saw you sign one of your Instagram posts off the other day with the ninja emoji, and I was like, I've got to chat about this.
That's a Ninja Binman. Well, yeah, and that's the funny thing is that a lot of the young guys that I look at it's almost like a me culture, and I kind of often wonder where they get that. I'm not suggesting our generation don't have that attitude, but what we were talking about there is just that kind of. I don't know if self-centered's kind of the word, where it's like they feel as if it's the world owes them rather than they've got to put a bit of backbone and work in.
Expectations are different now as well, because you do have people online in that age group that have made more money than would ever have been possible at that age. So you've got like the crypto millionaires, the drop shipping millionaires, the guys that have made like internet money that doesn't seem almost real. And they're the first that will get hit. You get hit with on the feed, because that's what. I mean, if it bleeds, it leads. But on the opposite side, if it's like flash in your face, that also gathers attention as well. Because a 19-year-old with a Lamborghini is insane. How on earth that's happened? But it's becoming more common because of what's possible on the internet. But then you have this other group that their expectation levels are now so skewed by what might be possible while they're looking at their own life. And we know, like, I mean, for me, I was only really very feeling fiscally successful in my career when I was maybe 26, 27, and it took me a long time to get there, and I had a long, like almost apprenticeship within my sales career to get to where I needed to get to.
Right, okay.
But if I'd maybe been consuming content at that time and I saw somebody my age that was maybe selling thousands more than me, or making much more than me in their commission, or driving a much nicer car, that might have wobbled my head. Whereas I was maybe fortunate that the content at that time wasn't like that. So they're in this, they're in a rock and a hard place, these guys.
That's right. And do you know the funny thing is, talking about kind of that entrepreneurial kind of attitude, there was a guy, I'll no name names, but it was on the bins. And this was maybe 2 years ago. He turned around and he says, my attitude on marijuana, for example, should be legalised. Just take drug dealers out, sort of thing. And he kind of had a bit of hum and haw, and he says, but anyway, but somehow got on, what was it? It was vapes. They all seem to be absolutely fanatical about vapes. And I mean, I understand a sheesh pipe when you're on holiday or something, but bloody vapes 24/7. This guy, he says, somebody for Instagram contacted my lad for Pakistan. He gave him an offer of X amount of vapes for like 300 quid. And he says, I would rather my son buy X amount of vapes for £300 and sell them at school and make £1.5 to £2,000 and have to walk about being a paper boy. And I thought, wow, is that where the world's going? Is that where the world's going? And I thought, is that a bit of a Lord Alan Sugar type moment where he's just kind of came through the rough to get to the riches? And I thought, do I agree with that or no? And I thought, I like your tenacity and I like your boldness, but I thought, I can't imagine a 13-year-old doing an internet deal with somebody on Instagram to get X amount of vapes to then go selling them at school. And I thought, wow.
What a world we live in.
It is mad. Like, really mad. That generation, I'm so glad I'm saying I'm so glad, but I'm glad I'm born at 86. I'm glad I'm 39, man.
Yeah, I think we grew up in an easier, simpler time in a lot of ways, technology-wise especially.
Yeah, totally.
Less exposed to some of the things that were a challenge. And equally, you've still, I mean, your experiences like going away to be a holiday rep in Greece for all that time, it is quite unique still. Yeah. Whereas I wonder how unique some of their lives are now. Maybe they're more identikit.
Yeah, I think
in that age group, they're doing a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think everything is so accessible now, whereas I think maybe, and I'm probably we're on the cusp of the last of that generation where it's, you know, there was that feeling of needing to be kind of exploring and looking, and I was always a risk taker. Do you know what I mean? So I suppose when I don't know how I ended up in Greece. To be fair, I saw an advert on, must have been the internet, can't have been Facebook because it was before Facebook. And yeah, I thought, I'm doing that. And I applied, and I remember how risky it was. Well, not risky, but in the sense how brazen it was. Is I got somebody from a leisure centre who was a manager to write a fake CV or write a fake, what do you call it, covering letter, reference. That was it, reference. To say that I'd been teaching aerobics for at least a year. And I hadn't taught an aerobics class. So I went over there on the plane, got off the plane in Greece, and I was like, I've not got anything planned. And I just won it. Do you know what I mean? Just fake it till you make it. Do you know what I mean? That's what I done. I'm looking at these kids now and thinking, would you do that? Maybe no. I don't know. But I enjoyed it. You know what I mean? I enjoyed that brazen kind of landing in Greece, writing an aerobics plan on the plane with a pen and paper and just jumping on the mat and selling my personality before I could sell my skill, really.
How do you reflect on that time in Greece? Did it teach you anything?
Oh, you know what it taught me is just, again, it was that just be you. Do you know what I mean? Well, saying that, did I have a bit of an identity crisis? Yeah. Where I worked for was a company called Mark Warner Holidays. So they're pretty affluent. So it was a world that I wasn't unfamiliar with because I danced, which was at times... It was
high society. So
high society, yeah, quite a bit aristocratic at times. When I went there, I met... It was like the university life because I'd met so many interesting characters from very affluent backgrounds, very working class backgrounds. My mate Brad, and it was funny. It was kind of the more affluent guys were sailing instructors, tennis instructors. The more working class guys were either cleaners, barmen, or kind of security. So I was kind of stuck in the middle. I was this kind of working middle class laddie that came from Edinburgh, bit of a token kind of player in the sense, say we can't quite read him. So I always kind of thrived on that, and I was one of the only Scottish guys that was there. And I remember when I went to France, I thought, don't change, just be you. And I went to work in the Alps, and I thought I was going to Egypt. This was another hilarious thing, is I was told I was going to Egypt to work in the Hilton Hotel, which Mark Warner had rooms to work as a personal trainer there, or a group exercise instructor. That got shut down. They said you were going to France. And I was like, all right, I'm going to France, cool. So I've turned up in my board shorts, and I'm like, why is there snow? I end up in Val d'Isère, and I'm like, where am I? And they're like, mate, you're in Val d'Isère. You're in this big guy, Casper's. You're like, mate, how you doing? I'm your boss. And I'm like, I know, I'm a kitchen porter. I thought I was working in France. He went, you're in France. You're in the Alps, mate. And I'm like, no. I was like, this is like Baltic. So I ended up learning to ski, but what I learned is just this whole, just go with the flow. And what these kids had understood that they were going to do a ski season, they were going to do a snowboarding season, or that's the one thing that I took from it, is just be an open book and just go for it and have no fear. Do you know what I mean? As long as you've got a B plan, in the sense, say you've got a little bit of money behind you and you understand that you're working for a decent company, you know what I mean, they're going to look after you to start with, then get a bit more bullshit. And Mark Warner, man, what a gig that was. I've got some stories that I probably can't even tell in here.
Yeah, that's good.
I'll keep it stoosh, but yeah, good memories, really, really good memories.
Yeah, and we mentioned the Ninja Binman.
Mm-hmm.
What led you ended up working on the bins? Because did that come after the holiday camps then, when you came back?
Yeah, well, I worked up until about 2013 abroad. So from about 2007 to about 2014 probably. Then I worked the circuit in fitness in Edinburgh, kind of Edinburgh University, David Lloyd's, all these kind of fitness companies. And then COVID kicked in, and with Social Fit, the kind of thing that I do, I thought, right, I'm going to put it online, but I didn't have a clue what I was doing, so I just put it on Facebook. Thought, right, I'll do it for free. It'll keep me structured. Everyone's getting universal credit or whatever it was, and that's what I did. And I thought, right, this isn't going to last. And I suppose I didn't have that. I suppose it's kind of like I had the skill set of public relations, fitness, but I didn't really know the business aspect of it. I didn't, if I'm being honest. And still, to some degree, I'm still a little bit unconfident on that, if I'm being truthful. So I thought, right, well, I need to pay my mortgage. And I went up and I thought, right, well, I'll just be a bin man. And I remember applying, and I had to convince the agency that I wanted the job. They're like, no, you're too overqualified. You can't be a bin man. And I'm like, but I need a job. And they're like, but why would a fitness instructor who's sold his soul to Europe doing every single fitness class on the planet, and I'd sold myself like I was Mr. Motivator, what to become a bin man? I was like, because I'm desperate, I need money. Do you know what I mean? Absolutely, I'm needing money here to pay a mortgage. So they gave me it, and I remember turning up to the yard, and I was like, wow, this is a culture shock. This is mad. And to some degree, I'm back on the bins for one reason or another. It didn't work down in Newcastle with me, my missus, or my ex, should I say. So I came back and I phoned up Mark and I was like, can I come back on the bins? The one thing that I do like about the bins, it's job and knock. It's a steady income this now, and they take no prisoners. Do you know what I mean? You remain humble.
Do you feel part of a team as well?
You do. You are part of a team. Do you know what I mean?
Because you're almost like on a van together.
That's right, yeah.
And you stick as a unit.
You do.
Every day or however many days you're running it.
Yeah, and the thing is, I'm working with a guy called Danny this now, and because the turnover of staff is so high, because it's such a physically demanding job, and I'm not just saying that to kind of try and big it up, it is a really physically demanding job, especially the bin motors that we work on in East Lothian, where everything's hand-fed. Danny, for example, the day he phoned me and he was telling me what was going on. So there's that real loyalty to one another. And the high turnover of staff is like, we're always having to kind of train another guy up. So it's pretty relentless, do you know what I mean? So me and Danny have a really strong bond where I've got his back and he's got my back, do you know what I mean? And I've not known him long, but I feel as if
You
I'm
build a
known in my
connection.
lifetime.
Yeah, a couple of things going off my head as we're talking about that. So I interviewed a couple of years ago now a guy called Adam Lane Smith, who's an attachment specialist, and he was teaching me about all these different hormones that release through different experiences.
Yeah.
And one of the hormones that releases through shared struggle is vasopressin.
Right.
And it bonds you. So guys that have fought in wars together.
Yeah.
Tremendous amount of vasopressin and connection. So they might not see each other for 5, 10, 15 years, but they meet up and it's like they're brothers again. You'll have this with the guys that you went on SAS Who Dares Wins with, because you'll meet back up and you'll remember those times where you pulled together and you did work together.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
With the bins being a physical, challenging, and at times probably really difficult experience, the guys, you'll quickly connect with them tighter than you would with people you've maybe known for years, but only at a surface level. Because they'll probably share stuff with you when you're side by side in the van, or jumping between about what's going on at home, what's going on with family life, what's going on with business, whatever it is. And that builds you much tighter than some of the maybe guarded conversations that we have day to day with people that I went to school with him, but do I really know him? Probably not. I used to work with him at the David Lloyd or whatever. You maybe had the chats over coffee, but
formalities.
But it's not the same. So that vasopressin release is something I find really interesting.
That came across a lot in seasons as well, as you were there for 6 months with people, and you felt so you were religiously with them. Do you know what I mean? Whether they were with the childcare team, or whether they were with the waterfront team, or the aerobics team, or the bar team, there was this kind of real journey to try and make yourself. For example, with Thomas Cook, they were absolutely whether you were in Spain or France or Turkey or wherever it was, you wanted to be the number one hotel within Thomas Cook. Do you know what I mean? I always remember there's a picture he actually asked with our hands up, number one, and we got number one. That was in Lanzarote, actually. It was me, Reiner, and it was the first male team, or one of the very few male teams, we'll always say, that worked together, because I always kind of try to create a demographic of women, men, and etc. But the biggest thing that, you're right, actually, that I took away from seasons, and again from that military environment, where it's, and almost you were kind of institutionalised in a way that there was a job that had to be done. You had to abide by the hotel rules, or their way of life, they called it. If you didn't abide by those rules in or out the hotel, do you know what I mean? There would be consequences to your job. So you did trust each other. Your door was always open to anyone, really. Do you know what I mean? Your door was always right, just jump in. And van life, I suppose, with the bins, you're right. You know what I mean? The guys that I've worked with, whether it be Callum, Jay, Stevie, Danny, the 4 guys that I've worked with mostly, we have.
There's a connection there, there's a bond.
Yeah, there is a bond. A really, really good bond, And we know a lot about each other's life, within reason, do you know what I mean? But we've got each other's backs, that's the most important thing, that's what we're talking about.
I read in an article in The Sun, after you'd been on Who Dares Wins, that you quite fancied the military at a younger age, but your epilepsy was an issue around that. How did you bounce back from that sort of knockback?
Well, I mean, how do you go for the military? What do you do the military to dance? And I think I just wanted a job that had fulfilment and purpose. And I suppose I always described it on Ultimate Hell Week, which was a BBC one that I'd done in 2016. I always remember saying to Clinton Agnew, you know what I mean? They call it the theatre of war, right? I mean, theatre of dance is not quite the theatre of war. We're not doing 5, 6, 7, 8 in jazz hands. But if you get it wrong, it affects everyone. You know what I mean? If it's 5, 6, 7, 8 and we're going right and you're going left, you're buggered. Do you know what I mean? So you can't, there's no room for error. So that real discipline that I took from, I suppose, both jobs, the discipline from all of those, I think that's what we're talking about, isn't it? If I go off on one.
No, we're good.
We'll probably go on about that later, aye. But I just kind of try and embody all of them. The dancing. Saying that, the dancing when I was younger, what I did find as a heterosexual male, and I'm not just saying that the macho thing of the lad in his 40s, I always found it quite isolating. Do you know what I mean? I found it really isolating. So actually, I would say that chapter in my life wasn't as team orientated, although it was meant to be team orientated. When you were on stage and you were performing and you were doing your thing, but after it, do you know what I mean? It was quite an artificial environment. I didn't enjoy that aspect of it until I went on seasons, and we're talking about that. And
you found
unity.
that team again.
Yeah. So it was actually the seasons that brought that wee spark back into my belly, and then I suppose the bins, and then teaching fitness within Edinburgh University. They've got a humongous real team ethos. I loved it there. You know what I mean? Whether you were the cleaner or the fitness instructor or the receptionist, there was this real sense of unity, and I enjoy that. I'm a real sucker for loyalty and teamwork, basically.
You mentioned Ultimate Hell Week there, and that was 2016.
That's
went
correct.
on that.
Yeah.
I can see that passion for potentially doing something military. You were then exploring that in an environment that would let you do it, I suppose.
Yeah. So the military, that's what we're talking about. I mean, that... Do you know what got me into that I'd come to such an unfulfilled point in my life after seasons. I thought, what am I going to do? Do you know what I mean? I'd always had a real thing about competition, and I remember when I got diagnosed with epilepsy, and they told me, "No, you can't do it. You're not going to be able to join the military." And I was really, really down about that. When I got that opportunity to do Ultimate Hell Week, I thought it was just going to be a physiological thing. Do you know what I mean? It was going to be a physical thing. I didn't really understand the mental dexterity that you would need for it. And I thought I had a good amount of resilience in regards to, being a dancer. You took a lot of knockbacks and stuff like that. But it was a safe space. Do you know what I mean? You always went back to your house, you had your cup of tea or your dinner or whatever, four walls around you. When you were exposed to this situation of guys in the military and everything's taken off you and everyone's neutralised, whether you're rowing the Atlantic, you're an Olympic rower, whatever, everyone's neutralised. Do you know what I mean? They're in control. They're in full control. And that was a real baptism of fire for me. That was a humongous reality checky, thinking, wow, this isn't just fitness. So I would say in 2016, in regards to Ultimate Hell Week, I had a greater sense of achievement fitness-wise.
Interesting.
But 2022, I was certainly a lot more clued up there, and I wasn't as fit, I would say.
And you got the result in 2022 that you were chasing as well, which we'll definitely talk about.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But Ultimate Hell Week's an interesting one because you get experience across different countries,
That's
special
correct.
forces, don't you?
Yeah.
So what was that like across all those different ones?
South Africa started with the recce's. They just started with interrogation. That was it. You're just getting thrown in. And that was mad because it was... I remember meeting them, and then it was... We kind of got hammered for about 18 hours solid. Then they threw us into what was called the Jack Bus, this 4-tonner, which was just a really rattly vehicle, what we say.
Tin
can, basically, aye. And I remember thinking, where are we going? We were soaked wet. Then we're freezing cold. Some of them were having flaps about having hypothermia and stuff like that, which, to be fair, one of them nearly did. In fact, they did get hypothermia, which was in South Africa in the middle of the night, which was weird because it was 40 degrees during the day and Baltic at night.
Recipe for disaster.
Yeah,
there.
but the South Africans were just like, listen, you're here because you want to be here. And I remember after interrogation, they kind of throwing the water over our head in the bag and then putting the smoke up our hoods and roughing us about a bit and stress positions. It only went on for about 8 or 10 hours, that one. But it was enough to break me. I mean, I didn't quit, but I was thinking, bloody hell. I don't know how long that's meant to go on for these, the legit,
in real life,
South African recce's. But that gave me a real, it made my skin tingle. I thought, right, I'm up for this now. I remember I had my moment. I thought, right, if I can pass that, I'm going to keep going. South African recce's were brilliant. I'm still in touch with Clinton Agnew. He's amazing. He was a colonial in the South African recce's. Still in touch with me. And then it was what was it after that? Polish Grom. Didn't shout, nor up nor down. Just
level
the whole time. I remember I've still got the calluses on my hand actually there. Where I slid down a monkey rope and the guy turned around and I says, can I go and see the medic? He went, no, you're not going to see a medic. And I was like, I've got cuts on my hand. Again, just being naive. He went, I sit in a cold dark hole for days waiting to put a bullet in somebody's head and you won't go and see a medic because you've got calluses. No. You can go and see the medic and quit or you can carry on. I went, I'll carry on.
Carry on.
So that was kind of his attitude.
You put it like that, I'll carry on.
Yeah, I'll carry on.
Perspective's a massive thing.
Yeah. And I didn't want to leave at that point. And then it went on to the American SEALs. Terry Shapard, he does these kind of Discovery type channel ones. And he was a bit more kind of building you up. And what I didn't recognise, it was almost this kind of good cop, bad cop. I think that was kind of the episode where we'd been hammered for 72 hours, not really slept. We'll build them up a bit again. And they built us up to where they were like, Grant, you've done really well. What he didn't see on Ultimate Hell Week was that they'd given us kind of this moment where we'd have a shower. So you can go to the shower. So I was like, thank goodness. So I'd done really well. I'd led that task in South with the American SEALs, won it. I wasn't getting ahead of myself, but I thought, I've done well. Went for a shower, took my rifle, had my shower, got distracted, having a bit of a laugh in the shower block, forgot my rifle, ran back to the kind of the barracks, the digs. Driscoll, DS Driscoll was like, you're an ex-Royal Marine. It's like, where's your rifle, Flynn? It's like, it's in the shower block, staff. I'll go and get it. He went, oh, no, go and get it. I got beasted, 20 minutes of burpees. Solid.
That's the punishment.
Oh, man, I was battered. And for there, my morale went down. I have to admit, my morale went down at that point. Got to the South Koreans, and then I was pulled. I was told, listen, you're not getting it. And I was gutted. I was like, no, this is crap. I'm never going to get this. So then I went on this quest of fulfilling every ultra marathon. So that sparked a humongous desire to never ever get in that position again where I expose myself like that. Or if I do somehow miraculously get myself out it. Because I'm not flying all the way out to South Africa, getting the biggest opportunity in the world at that time for me to demonstrate this resiliency. And then get pushed back. So I thought, right. And then obviously Channel 4 phoned me. But yeah, with that Ultimate Hell Week chapter, that really was a big trajectory and a big spring into a lot of the achievements that I've done with marathons and ultra marathons and stuff like that.
Yeah, we got introduced through Mike Samuels, who's been on the show a couple of times.
Guy.
Amazing guy. And he was saying one of the conversations he had with you that he would love me to ask you about was very much that you come from the school of embracing hard exercise as a choice and choosing suffering on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Because ultimately it is a choice for you to go and do that.
Yeah.
How important is that for you in your life?
Mega. I think it's one of these things, do you know where it comes from is having watched other people's hardships and other people's unfortunate things. And I suppose it's a bit of a coping mechanism where I think if that individual can get through, and I'm being very truthful, that person, for example, my mother, who unfortunately passed away, can go through an enormous amount of 6 different trial drugs of chemo for myeloma, or an individual that's got MS or motor neurons disease can get to the end of that. What am I moaning about? Like this morning when I was at the gym, I was doing chest, and it was Fergus. Fergus.
No, Fergus Crawley,
Yeah, I'm doing one of his programmes just now.
Amazing. Omnia,
great programme. So I'm doing one of his half marathon hybrid programmes, and it's got to a kind of 2 session kind of training bit. So I'm doing chest and what was it the day? A kind of chilled out run, what we call it, lists they call it on the programme. So I'll do that. So I'm doing that, and in my head I'm thinking, nah, I'm knackered. In my head I'm like, nah, I've got the mental dexterity, I've got the physical capability of it. I'm graced with the opportunity to be able to train, suck it up, pull your big boy pants up and get on with it. And that's my attitude to it. Do you know what I mean? And my dad was like that for years. My dad done very well in martial arts, very humble guy, very modest guy. Probably curse me for talking about it on this podcast because he's so humble. But he done karate for years, so he got to a 3rd dan, and his attitude was old school, kind of work hard. You know what I mean? You sweat, you work hard, you've got the opportunity and you've been graced with this, so get out and do it. Do you know what I mean? So when I train till my feet bleed, I train till my hands bleed, I train till I sweat and I collapse and I don't give up. And there's some, I suppose that comes with traits in my mental health, which we'll probably speak about later as well, where I use that little nodule in my head that I can switch on.
Perspective's really important as well. Like compare your existing situation, which you're taking on through choice, to something that is forced upon somebody that you don't wish upon them, and you feel a level of empathy for them. So you feel almost guilty if you weren't to put in the effort through things that you've got a choice in. And it was actually the 2nd anniversary of it yesterday. My grandpa served in World War II. And he played for Rangers Football Club. So he missed 6 years of his career.
Right.
And the town of Winchborough, which he was born in, did a monument to him 2 years ago to commemorate like 50 years since he won the military medal. And he served in Sicily. And one of the stories, and I was watching the video yesterday, it came up in my memory saying 2 years ago. And they were talking about how he had fire raining down on them for 18 hours straight, but they were turning fire on the enemy, the Nazis. And I was laughing to my mum. I was like, and this sounds so crazy, but I was like, Mum, can you imagine he's 21? He's signed his dream contract playing for Rangers Football Club. And he's been dragged away to fight this war. And he's in a bunker in Sicily shooting at Germans who are probably the same age as him, but are intent on killing him, and he has to kill them. and he's won the military medal off the back of it as well. And I'm saying to Mum, nowadays we trivialise so many of the problems that we have. We're talking about these people that are sitting in their mum's basement watching porn and playing video games all day and stuff.
I agree, yeah.
And that generation, if that had been 50 years back in time, they would be in the trenches. They would have no choice but to get the fuck on with it.
Yeah.
And so for me, like, having those little bits of perspective, and there's only so far you can go with that. You can like extrapolate that into nonsense, but if it's stopping you from maybe having the gym session you wanted this morning, you say, do you know what?
Yeah.
People that have come before me and people who sit alongside me have gone through much more challenging things.
Absolutely.
I guess I'll just put in the fucking work like I said I was going to when I decided I was going to take on this challenge.
Totally. And I think it's that hardship, isn't it, that you watch that others have endured and given us freedom. Do you know what I mean? To be able to train at Meadowbank Sports Centre or David Lloyd's in an air-conditioned studio whilst they're running in gym rubbers up a bloody track to prove that they're 15-year-old in a war. Do you know what I mean? Flying Spitfires, women as well.
Crazy.
Flying Spitfires and never flown a plane in their life and told, that's your training manual, read it, off you go, jump in the plane and get on with it. Can you imagine a 21-year-old doing that now? Nah, it's mad.
Yeah, it was mad time.
So that gives me my fire in my belly, is thinking, do you know what, there's people that have got it a hell of a lot worse than me. And I mean, there's my dad. Do you know what I mean? He went to the BBs and all these things. So he often speaks about, he came from a rough area, Muirhouse, but it was always about bettering himself. And for me, that's important as well. Do you know what I mean? I don't allow your past to define who you are now. Remember it, but you know, I always, when I was working for Mark Warner, I always say, I'm for Scotland, and my dad went, will you shut up? Like, yeah, you're Scots, be proud, but at the same time, remember, we've worked hard. You live near the Queen's Park. Tell them that Prince Charles at the time hasn't even invited you in for a cup of tea. You're his neighbour. Tell them that. It's not being a snob. This is what your dad that lived in Muirhouse and your mother that worked to get you here. You know what I mean?
He got a house in this area through hard work and focus.
7 days
a
week work. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, that's a lot of my fuel to my fire when I'm training, and when I'm having a wee pity potty moment, my droopy bottom lip and feeling sorry for myself. I've got it all right.
If you're new to the podcast, make sure you've hit the subscribe or the follow button on whatever platform you're listening on, so I can keep getting fantastic guests just like this one.
I know you did have a real rock bottom moment, and I know listeners get a lot from guests sharing that and what happened off the back of it and how you've moved forward from it.
Yeah.
So talk to me about what led up to the situation where you maybe had your breakdown and you were in that cell and life was very much in the worst possible spot.
Yeah, well, first of all, it had a detrimental effect on my family as well. So I don't just feel sorry for me. In fact, I don't want to feel sorry for myself. But at the time, when I'd started dancing when I was younger, I mean, the bullying that went on, both physiologically and mentally, was crap. It was really bad.
That leaves scars as well. Like,
it does.
I've spoken to a lot of people, and I had a hard time at late primary school, and I don't forgive the people. Yeah. People say that, they're like, oh, forgive and forget. Nah, I wouldn't piss in the throne
fire.
The
one thing I hate is bullies, and I still hate them to this day. So yeah, that there was a bit of guilt because it affected my brother, essentially, my twin brother, who's naturally very protective of me. So when I'm getting bullied, he's then seeing it, it's affecting him. So a lot of that conditioning over years and years of being the high school bullying. I enjoyed my primary school actually, but the high school bullying, leaving high school, then starting dancing, I loved it, but the environment itself was really artificial. So I had to work really, really hard at that. And I found it really challenging actually, although it was weird. I won a scholarship for a dance school down in London. I did find it challenging, being dyslexic and X, Y, and Z, again, that we can speak about if you want it later.
Definitely.
And I didn't understand that part of it. So that self-confidence was kind of beat out me. There was issues that were going on within wider family at that time, that had a pretty detrimental impact. So I think it was just an accumulation of a number of things up until I would say I was about 21. When I was 21, I went abroad. That was escape. So I suppose it was a bit of imposter syndrome as well, where I could be anyone I wanted to.
You can reinvent yourself.
Yeah, and I did. But then when I came back to Edinburgh and I was that person, it was like we said, who are you? We don't know this person. This isn't Grant. It's like, well...
They had you in a box previously and they want you back in it. It's easier for them.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of the things where I was just having this fight in my head. Do I act this way? Do I not act this way? And it got to a point where I kind of, my cousin Lee, unfortunately, he committed suicide, which was pretty brutal. I got the call to say that unfortunately he'd committed suicide. Then I blamed myself, and then I went down that rabbit hole. And then it kind of just spiraled and spiraled and spiraled. And I remember being on, it was Broxburn High Street. I can't really describe it. I just hit the wall. And it was like, my ex at the time, Haley, good on her, she grabbed me and she's like, what's going on? And I was like, ah. And I remember, I can't remember anything really, but I was told that I pushed her and says, listen, get out my face, I don't know what went on. And then I just came to, and then it was, the police were like, we're taking you in. I was like, eh? And I remember just put my hands behind my back.
Yeah.
They cuffed me, put me in the cells for 2 nights. They spoke to a psychologist, spoke to a doctor, and they says, listen, you're going to have to basically strip naked. We'll get you in a suicide suit. And I was like, all right. Chucked me in a suicide suit. And I remember being in there for, I think it was 3 days. And I remember thinking, after that, something needs, I remember my mum saying, something needs to change. This isn't you. Went to the doctor and discovered things about myself that then explained a lot that my mother said to me before she passed away. You need to get this checked out. Now, I'm not saying it's all that's caused my mental health breakdown in regards to the build-up of trauma. There's certain things that I could have probably done better and life choices that I could have made better. But at the same time, I was maybe 15 when I started dancing, right up until I was about, when did I have the kind of meltdown? Probably 28 or 29. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? That's a good 10 years trying to fake who you are and try to pretend it's not it does, aye, and you do break down.
One of the analogies that I find helpful is when you consider a coffee cup, and there's only so much capacity in the cup, and sometimes things keep pouring in, and there was probably a lot of coffee poured in when you experienced a cousin of yours dying by suicide, and then anything else circumstantial, that's a tipping point, and there's only so much that somebody can handle, and with some of the things that we'll speak about in a second about how you are neurologically and some of the things that you understand about yourself, and probably some of the things that you do now to serve yourself better. You probably didn't have those tools then to deal with that. So it's not an inevitability. There might have been a way of coping with it and pushing it back, but it might have come down the line. If you hadn't happened then, it might have happened later, and it could have even been worse. Very which true. Is the frightening thing, isn't it?
Yeah. If I had been diagnosed with ADHD and then it was told, you know, I often say it's not an excuse, it's an explanation. Do you know what I mean? So to have got to a point in my life where I was so low, I remember that was a turning point. But again, that turning point of trying to better myself, it was then told, but you're becoming obsessed with fitness, you're becoming obsessed with not drinking, you're becoming obsessed with bettering your lifestyle. And I'm like, what is it you want? Do you want me to better my life and take a change of sobriety and bettering my circumstances temporarily in the sense of sobriety and all that sort of thing? Or do you want me to remain this Dave the Rave party animal that's drinking his selling to oblivion, suppressing his feelings through drink, denying all problems, not going to seek help? And then I thought, why am I allowing them to choose it? Do you know what I mean? I need to listen to my mum. This isn't you. There's something all right. Go and get help. And I remember my mum took me to the doctors, and I'd explained that I needed help. I needed help. I'd been in the cells. I'd hit the lowest of the low. And they put me on antidepressants to start with. It was, what was that again? Sertraline. And then beta blockers to kind of suppress anxiety. And I thought, that's something still no right here. And then my mum says, have you heard the ADHD? And I went, no. Is that a TV? Is that HD TV? Or what is that? Is that a new group? Is it a boy band? I don't know. What is it? And she's like, no, it's where you get forgetful. Because you lose your keys a lot. You have emotional outbursts. You always think it's you that's the problem. Right? So
I've heard you say before that stuff like filing your taxes and stuff like that was stuff that you would always put off. Yeah. And you would wonder, why do I do that? Yeah. Yeah, and it's something that's in your neurochemistry.
I've still not done my invoices for Edinburgh Leisure, and that was July's, and everyone else has done it, and I'm like, nah, it's a weird one. So, you're right. This kind of administrative school was so difficult. I hated high school. I couldn't keep up. I really hated it. I remember they put me in the base, And it's like where the nincompoops will be polite, the donkeys, the turds went. Do you know what I mean? I don't know how I'm trying to remain PC on the podcast. There was different words for it, but all says it was a variety of different characters, whether you're naughty or no very intellect. And I went down there and I'm sitting thinking, and they would bring out, do you want to colour a book and do you want to do this? And I'd be like, nah, no, really, actually, I just want to figure out a way so I can go back up to German or science or be with my mates and take part, but I can't keep up. I remember history, they were on the blackboard, flick it up, and I just couldn't keep up. And I just gave up. You know what I mean? I admit it, I gave up. Not because I wanted to give up, just I thought, well, if I can't keep up with
withdraw.
the right. So again, that's probably a big part of my confidence. And I spoke to, it was, so my mum was ill. I never thought about it. So I was on antidepressants for a long time. Then unfortunately my mother passed away. And I thought, right, I remember my mum before she passed away. She says, if there's one thing that I want you to remember, if you want something done, get it done. And I went, right. So I went to the doctor.
I love little phrases like that from parents because they've got the best intentions for you and it just sticks with you when it's... And beyond the grave, it stays with you and you do something about it.
Yeah, and I'm still like that. Like training, you want it done, get it done. Only you can jump on a treadmill and run. So do it. Stop making excuses. And I can hear my mum in my head always saying that. Dishes get done, but we're not giving you an applaud. Just do it. You're not getting a brownie badge. Shut up. Just
we're doing it for your invoices. I'm going to text you that when we get home.
Aye. Numbnuts. Do invoice. Where was all of that? So I went to Dr. Bailey, who was my mum's doctor that I felt I had a little bit of trust with. And I explained it, different things, and she went, right. She goes, let's get you tested for ADHD. She goes, you might have autism. Right, cool. Let's just go with the roll. So they give you that sheet when you've got depression. Do you wash yourself? Do you do this? Do you do that? Do you do that? The kind of who am I form, I call it. Handed it in. A year later, I'm thinking, why have I not heard anything? So I phoned up the reception, who, rightly or wrongly, I now feel like they're qualified doctors as well. Can you describe your symptoms? Can you describe this and that and that? I was like, well, I'm not really here to describe my symptoms. I'm just here to tell you that I handed out a form. I think I've got ADHD, if that's any use to you. Where is it? What's going on? And they were like, well, I've just spoke to Dr. Bailey, Mrs. Bailey. You've not handed it in. And I went, no, I have handed it in. They went, you have handed it in. So Dr. Bailey phoned me and she went, Grant, she goes, good news. She goes, it's not you. She goes, bad news, it's on us. She goes, we've not submitted, not processed the form. It's been sat in a pigeonhole. I went, all right. Brilliant. So I handed it in again. A year later, I phoned up. What's happening? This was just before COVID. Again, I don't think it had been processed. It had been handed in, but it still hadn't been processed. There was something, an administrative fault again on their end. So I got a letter of apology. Sorry, Mr. Flynn, blah, 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 blah. I must have been 2 weeks later, I got a call from Keith House down in Leith, mental health department. We'll call you because now we're into kind of COVID. Right.
You can't go and see anyone, yeah.
Nah, 2-hour conversation. Describe your childhood, describe this, describe that, describe whatever it was. And he says, yeah, I think it's safe to say after having read your notes from 1986 all the way up to now, the conversation that we've had, we'll have another conversation, but I'm on the grounds that you've definitely got ADHD, both hyperactive, inattentive, maybe autism. Do you want to go down the line of autism? And I went, I'll be honest, no. ADHD, ASD's, as far as I'm concerned, all under the one bracket. I've lived with it for 38 years. As long as I have an idea, right? So he phoned me back and he says, no, you've definitely got ADHD. If you want to go down the ASD, the autistic spectrum one, we can, but let's just focus on the ADHD. And I went, right, fine. I says, what are we going to do? What's the plan next?
Solution-led, I can tell.
Yeah. There's not anything really we can do. You've got it. We can put you on tablets. Right. Cool. So there's no therapy. They're like, well, there's a 6-week stars course where you get to pick a topic. What sort of topic? They're like, inattentiveness, distractibility sort of stuff. All right, cool. And that was it. So I got a 6-week course on how not to be distracted, which hasn't really worked, to then be told, there's your Ritalin if you want to take it, or your Concerta, 18 milligrams never worked, 32 milligrams did work, but then I'd come off it because my blood pressure went through the roof. I mean, when I first took it, I felt like Spud on Train Spotting when he had his first interview. Do you remember when he's like that?
Yeah.
Measured my pleasure. It felt very weird. But after that, it was this kind of prolonged concentration. But I'm having to now go back. When I moved to England, I was then told you have to go through the rigmarole again. You're getting
different NHS,
different NHS, which, by the way, brilliant actually. I was very impressed with Sunnyside practice. May I say, kudos to you guys. You were brilliant with me. Doing in Newcastle, Gateshead, and then I moved back here, and they're like, "Oh, you're gonna have to go through it again." I've got ADHD. You know what I mean? If you had diabetes or something, they're not going to put you through the ringer 45 times to prove that you've got diabetes. But with ADHD, it's one of these ones where you're just kind of having to accept that there's a process. And
how helpful has it been having a diagnosis now?
Massive. I think it gives me a real sense of identity. Do you know what I mean? A lot of people say don't put a label on yourself. For me, it doesn't bother me. Do you know what I mean? I think it's just Grant. Do you know what I mean? I can feel in this podcast, you're asking me questions and my brain's kind of going over there, and good thing is you've drawn men a couple of times, and that's all that's needed. Do you know what I mean?
Well, you've got, like, I find this with every guest, you've got so much to say and we can end up in one place, but my job as the host is to guide us where we maybe want to end up.
Yeah.
And we might end up somewhere that's different from planned, but I'll enjoy it and the listeners will enjoy it along the way. And many of the people that are very entrepreneurial are very much on the spectrum of ADHD.
Yeah, I've heard
like,
that. Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Like super urgent, super focused, super or completely, I'm not doing that. I can't be bothered doing that. I'm detached from that at different times, depending on what it is. Yeah. So like apply themselves in one area but completely disregard for another area because it just doesn't light their fire in the way the other area does.
Yeah.
And that's a very big trait of ADHD.
Yeah, and when I worked seasons abroad, it was like the happiest chapter of my life because I was just constantly, I had a running order of what we were doing, or I had a kind of itinerary of what we were doing, then I had a running order within, whether it was evening entertainment or it was a daytime entertainment. So I suppose, and it was just constant, on the ball.
Stimulus as well.
Stimulus. So I think that's kind of where I fell into all these kind of Ultimate Hell Week SAS Warriors wins, and that's where I feel happiest. It's where I'm getting absolutely burst. Do you know what I mean? Where my feet are rotting and they're jungle rotting, I'm interrogated and spewing my load. And
after getting diagnosed in your mid-30s, what advice would you give to somebody that's listening that maybe feels they're neurodivergent in some way and in that sort of similar boat without a diagnosis?
Be kind to yourself, definitely. Don't be too hard on yourself. And it was actually my friend Sarah from Ecuador, as she came out with that expression, you're so unapologetically yourself. You know, be unapologetically yourself. There's, you know, ADHD is not an excuse for being an ass or rude or, you know, or using it to your advantage. Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, it was actually Victoria and Mike when I was on the hill doing the 3 peaks. I was kind of saying, I'm not very good at this. And they were like, no. And it was Sarah as well for Ecuador. They're like, listen, Grant, this is you. Just be you. And that's what I would say to people, is just be unapologetically yourself. You know, you can't be great at everything. And I think that's a system, isn't it? Is that you compare yourself to the academic or, I don't know, the business person. You know what I mean? How can they do that and I can't do that? And that's what I was like for years. I would constantly compare myself to others. I don't now. I just think I am what I am. Yeah. I'm a Binman at this moment. Who knows what will happen? Do you know what I mean?
In your own lane, at your own speed.
Yeah.
And as long as you're progressing on what you've done previously, I think progress is happiness.
Yeah.
It's a Tony Robbins quote. And I really agree with it. If you're giving yourself a vehicle to go within, and your vehicle will be different from Jimmy next door to you or Hamish next door to you, or we'll use an English name, Jack.
Jack. Yeah, Jack's a good one. Jack's a strong one.
And that's just the nature of the game. Yeah. And I completely agree. And I find it interesting. I think there's been a massive increase in diagnoses, and I think it makes sense. I think there's lots of different environmental factors which are playing a role in it as well. Yeah. But understanding how you're naturally wired is extremely useful and probably explains a lot of situations or things that you've done in the past, and it can help you come to terms with, that's maybe why I acted that way in future. And you've a beautiful phrase you used is, it's not an excuse.
Yeah.
But it does make some sense.
Yeah.
And it helps me to make clarity on future decisions and future situations I might end up in.
Exactly. And I think, you know, it was probably so misdiagnosed back in the day because back in the day, in the 80s, prior to the 80s, everything was industrial. Do you know what I mean? Everything was industrial hand. A lot of it was labour intensive, wasn't it? And then we're not here. Well, I don't think we're here to get into politics with Thatcher and stuff. But you know what I mean? It became a more educated state, wasn't it? So then there was weaknesses exposed in the sense if you weren't kind of labour intensive, a manual labour, steel, miner, and they were then going to uni. Then there was fractures in the system, wasn't there? And a lot of these guys that were probably ADHD, autistic, they were never noticed because they were doing a job that they were brilliant at, and they were so acutely hyper focused on.
Perhaps even advantaged by their neurological state to do well in that role. So of course they'd be like, oh, it doesn't need diagnosed or tested.
It's
just let him crack on. Yeah, we'll just let him crack on.
Yeah.
Oh, it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's horses for courses, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like some horses will run better on the fast ground, some will run better on the thicker, harder to churn ground. Yeah, and that's just the nature of the game.
That is the nature of the game, mate. And I think I've got to a point now where I'm just rolling with it. Pardon the Oasis pun. Kind of, you know what I mean? You've got to roll with it, and that's where I'm at now. I'm just taking every day. That's the one thing that I learnt from SAS Weeders Wins, the Ultimate Hell Week. These guys that are in the SAS is they go this metre square, don't they? They kind of go one box to the next box, to the next box, to the next box. And whether that's business, life coaching, or whatever, do you know what I mean? It's just taking one step at a time and not becoming too... I used to get too overwhelmed. Like, right, what's happening in 6 months? Yeah, it's good to have a 6 month trajectory and know what you're doing then. But I used to be kind of 6 months ahead and not thinking about the now.
But not living in the present.
Yeah, not living, and that's a good way of saying it. Yeah. I wasn't really present. That's a good way of saying it. Yeah.
Presence is a big challenge nowadays because you've got so many distractions. I was saying to you, one of my favourite hours of the week is the chat with somebody just now. And while you were joking, like, my mind's going here, there, everywhere.
Yeah.
We're completely here right now. There's nothing else. The emails that I've got for tonight, I'll watch the Rangers game. I've got a client tomorrow morning. I've got stuff that I know will happen, but I'm not thinking about any of it. I'm just thinking about Grant's story, Grant's insights, what I can bring to the table to help the conversation, help the listeners understand more about what we're getting into. That's really hard to get in today's day and age.
Massively.
Technology is a big factor for that, but just general life stress is just higher. So tapping away from that and just trying to be where your feet are can be very
Take
helpful.
it back to basics. That's one of my big expressions. Back to basics with a bit of banter. I love that. Yeah, I really love that because it's just, I think what I admired about the older generation is just that sense of community, and I think that's a big thing I took for SAS Weeders Wins, Ultimate Hell Week, seasons, not so much dancing, but that there was always a community, and you do find your community, don't you? And I think that's the one thing that I would say to individuals that have got ADHD. Don't worry about don't make it us and them, but at the same time, don't get annoyed that somebody doesn't understand your brain.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I don't understand their brain, but
right.
It doesn't make them a bad person. Do you know what I mean? It's just who they are. It's just they're understood because the demographic and the society has conditioned us to think
in a particular way.
This is how we're working. And I've now kind of found my groove. I suppose I'm a bit hippie-ish, but kind of chilled, and you know, my brother and my dad are slightly different. Not to say that they've not, but I think my dad actually, since my mum's passed, sorry mum, my dad's become a bit more hippie-ish, I would say. He's a bit more kind of chilled, and his interests, I would say, actually are quite similar to my interests in some ways. So yeah, it's different how different chapters of your life take different turns. So the big message that I would say to anyone with ADHD or on the spectrum is just be in love with yourself. Do you know what I mean? Don't be arrogant with it. Be humble, but be in love with yourself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, amazing.
Most of the time when I'm talking and I say things, it's the things that I say out of turn in the sense of I'm not thinking are the funniest things.
Off the cuff.
They're like, wow, that was a good point, Grant, or that was absolutely hilarious. And I'm not even trying to be hilarious. Do you know what I mean?
More leads, more meetings, more quotes, more proposals, and closing a higher percentage of those. That's exactly what it's time to unlock with my sales masterclass. I've distilled down over 15 years of sales experience across B2B and B2C into some actionable lessons which you can benefit from. Clients that I've worked with one-to-one over the last 6 to 18 months have had incredible results, and it's now time for me to share with you an easier way to work with me rather than on a one-to-one basis. To get involved, hit the link in the show notes or under this description wherever you're watching this to join today's waiting list, and there's even some free goodies in there for you while you wait for the course to go live. I heard you say before that SAS Weeders Wins in 2022 was a rebirth for you.
It was, massively.
Why'd you say that?
Because it gave me a real sense of completion. It was one of those things where I think I'd always been the underdog, And this isn't my brother's fault. I'd always compared myself to my brother, who'd done very well at football, very well at karate. He'd done pretty decent at academics, went to university. So when you're a twin, you naturally compare yourself to people. When you're kind of falling behind in the system, again, you're comparing yourself to people. Maybe when you don't fulfil the career in dance because you've been told, okay, you've got the capability of a 32 grand scholarship down in London, but unfortunately you've not got the money. All those pushbacks, put that fire in my belly, thinking, I want that. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't about fame. It wasn't about exposure. Grant, this legend. It was me saying that if these guys, top 1% tier operators that are a mystery still to this stage, we think we know a lot about the SAS, the Special Forces, but the reality of it is I would imagine that we only know a very 1% of it. Do you know what I mean? That's what makes them the best of the best. But to be able to do what I called the most phenomenal life coaching boot camp, what we call it, to learn about myself on Ultimate Hell Week and then take that, and people say that was an advantage. Aye, you're right, it was an advantage.
You've been over the course before.
Yeah.
I've got a cheesy phrase that I use: we bleed in training so we don't die in battle.
Bam.
So you bled
Boom.
in that exercise, and then guess what? You turned up to the battle and you were like, I'm going to get hurt here, but I'm going to get through it.
Yeah, and the message that I always say is that, I always like that first attempt in learning, that failure. And I loved that. And, I really beat myself down about Ultimate Hell Week. But then that rebirth, saying, right, hold on a minute. We've had Ultimate Hell Week. That didn't happen. We've had all before Ultimate Hell Week, the bullying, blah, blah, blah. We've got through that. Things happening in the family, suicide and problems within the immediate family and stuff like that we've all worked through. We've got through that together. We then move forward to Grant running the Glencoe Marathon. Didn't even train for it, came 50th just because I'm a stubborn wee shit. The Great Scottish Run 5K, I came 4th. I've no idea how I managed that. I was like a wee fucking shih tzu dog running up towards the commie pool and back down. And I thought, there's something's whatever wires aren't tapped right, this is to my advantage. And when I went on that SAS Hooders ones, I said to my auntie Angie, I says, I'm either coming back in a box, dead, or winning this. And I says, or I'm getting medically withdrawn, whatever. I'm not quitting. And I remember bizarrely enjoying all of it. I remember sitting in interrogation, my feet were absolutely, this is not me trying to romanticise and try and big myself up. I just thought, I can do this. Is that old expression, can or can't? That's one of the, you're right, isn't it?
That's
that
true.
Expression.
Well, factually correct, isn't it?
Yeah.
Either.
Yeah.
But talk to me about the interrogation period, because that's something that most people who've been on that show reflect on a lot because of how challenging it is. What did they put you through?
So it kind of started off with a build-up of you're kind of on less calories. You're basically, it's a meat grinder. You're getting pushed and pushed and pushed to a point of where there's really nothing else other than your will. You're on this jolly, will we say, of they put you in a team. You're now beginning to get irritable. The characters that are very fit, the characters that deem potential winners are now beginning to show little cracks in their armour. And it was Josh, who was a boxer from London, was to lead this task of, and they were telling us, remember smell, remember feel, remember, you could be in the dark and stuff like that. So it was cracking. We had to follow this map and we're up. And there was a couple of moments where me and Josh were not having arguments, but having disagreements. And that was all part of the process. And then we were meant to get to this kind of RV where there was a box full of goodies. Unfortunately, we never got to that box of goodies. The other team got to it. Anyway, we all met and we were now pitch black in the jungle. And we were all Team Bravo, Team Alpha, we'll say. I can't remember what the teams were called. Were put together. And I was like, this is going to kick off. But I was keeping that in my head. So some of them were getting into the hammocks, into their maggots, their sleeping bags, getting comfy. And right, I'll go and stag, I'll go and watch, and I'll watch, and they're all eating their sweets that were given. And I thought, guys, complacency kills. I went, really keep switched on, please, everyone. Grant, shh, sort of thing. A couple of them, no of them. And next minute, dogs, everything. And I thought, well, here we go. Some of them are screaming, some of them are freaking out, and I'm like, aye, I remember I had this little Casio watch that was just about working. I thought, right, it's 10 o'clock at night. We've been on the run since about 24 hours now. I thought, it's 10 o'clock. It's just getting dark. I thought, I need to just take this moment by moment. Anyway, we're dragged by our bags into stress positions, on our knees, and we're getting absolutely grilled off these guards. And I remember my knee felt like it was going to pop out. And I thought, well, I can't moan. If it pops out, I'm popping it back in, or I'm just strapping it up, sort of thing. We were then doing all these stairs, and I thought, right, I recognise the stairs in my head because we were, had masks on, and it basically suppressed all sensories, like the ears, the eyes, everything.
Wow.
So we're walking down these stairs, and then we got down, and then we were put on, Foxy put on, was it TikTok? I think I'll have to send you it, on TikTok, where we were all back on the parade square, but we didn't know that. And I think the worst part of it there for me was I was an arse. I put my waterproof on because it started raining, but it was about 100% humidity and about a bazillion degrees. So now I'm standing on the parade square with my hands beside me. I was aware that there was other people around me, these dogs niggling their hands, barking, screaming. And Foxy's videoed it, and he's got do you know that, welcome to the house of fun? Yeah. And you see us, we're all just standing there, and the sweat running down our faces, and I actually thought I was going to pass out. I actually thought I was going to faint. No, because I was worried.
The heat.
Of the heat. So then they kind of dragged us into the cage, and then put the sound on us. The only thing that was a little bit more humane was they had to give us water, but they would tip your head back and kind of throw it in your face. So it wasn't done delicately, we always say. It was done in a rough way. You were roughed about. And then we got taken to meet Dilsky, who's the big, bold interrogator, who's actually a lovely guy, by the way, really, really nice guy.
He's got an act to play in the show.
He's got an act to play in the show. And then the woman, I can't remember her name actually, but Dilsky, I never met him. There was another interrogator. I think he was kind of the mediocre chap. The woman was she was a good cop, and Dilsky was the bad cop. So I never met Dilsky yet. So I met this other guy, again, I can't remember his name. And he was like, so what's your story? And I remember when they told us
your cover story, yeah,
which was about the Asian Small survey, which was AS, the AS survey, I couldn't stop laughing. I was like, right, don't laugh, I'm going to get my ass kicked. I was kind of trying, you want to laugh about something? You want to laugh about something? I was like, no, what's your team's name? And then you're having this brain fart because you're so sleep deprived. And you like got the Jakey shakes. I'm like that. And they're like, what's your team's name? And I'm like, Faye, Hillary. Why can't you remember your team's name? What's your leader's name? Mr. Wong from the Asian Small survey. So I was trying to keep it going. I was like, can I tell you about my hotel? So then I started going on about this hotel that they had. And I remember DS, Chris and Rudy were saying, just talk about the hotel, Jim. Just keep.
You're trying to delay getting to the potential, yeah.
Yeah. So
that's what the SAS guys will have to do under interrogation.
Absolutely.
Some sort of cover story, round and round and round the houses.
Oh, mate, I'll tell you what. I mean, I went on one and thought, I think I started boring the interrogator. But I mean, that was the power of having ADHD, is my imagination just went, wee. And I was still taking Ritalin at the time, which massively helped because I'd taken one of them before. So I was like, because I had to give you your meds, so I fucking pinged one of them. That was in a kind of Spud train sporting mode. I was like, right, let's go. She's like, right, so what's this about you leaving, it was my exit time, Haley. I says, well, I'm looking after my neighbour. And often during the day when I'm looking after my neighbour, we see the TV, and it was sponsor a donkey. It was sponsor the Asian Small donkey. And I thought I would come out, and I had a bit of hard mental health. And I thought I would come out and better myself by sponsoring the donkey. And I went on and on about this donkey, and the donkey's got a lovely mohawk, and he's looking at me and I'm like, right, but I've got ADHD and I feel really bad and I'm a bit on the spectrum. And he's writing this down. He says, so what, you're thick? And I'm like, and he's then trying to kind of play at me. So anyway, I got told after I'd won it by Billy, I could bore the shit out of Glass Eye during interrogation. He says, you've done well, but that you could bore the shit out of Glass Eye. He says, I've never heard anyone go on and on and on and on and on and on. So anyway, they took us out interrogation. They took us out the kind of formal, kind of when we were getting formulated, basically. They're having to interview us basically before it. And then we met what was his name? The Scottish guy. He was the umpire. It was the umpire. he was like, "Do you know who I am? Yep, the umpire. If I meet you again, you're off the course." That's when it started getting quite serious. Then I went back into this kind of processing. That's the word I'm looking for. The processing room. And they're like, right, strip naked. Like, well, whatever. Nessie's out. Everything's off. And they're like, no, you can leave your pants on. I'm like, right, pull my pants back up.
Wanted to get that on TV.
I just wanted to get my Bobby Dabro out. So Nessie was out. So it says, take your socks off. And I was like, right, my feet were in bits, like, in a really bad way. So I took my socks off. And I was standing there and I'm like, right, put the boiler suit on. So we put the boiler suit on. And he went, I was going to put my socks back. And I went, no. Leave the socks. Put your boots back on. So now we've tie your boots up. So now my feet are jungle rot in these leather boots. And throughout that, whatever it was, 30 hours, whatever it was, interrogation, my feet were just grinding. So see all the stress positions, don't get me wrong, they were horrendous. You were just made to feel so demoralised, dehumanised, uncomfortable, and borderline at your limit all the time. The noise was beyond weird. For many people, it might have been quite traumatising, actually. How I got through it is I just started kind of playing Tabata intervals, kind of 20 seconds, and then kind of try to recover.
Interesting.
So I had gone round the supermarket, aisle 14 for some chocolate, and I started playing games in my head until you start...
Anything to distract yourself.
Yeah, and you do start hallucinating. I remember at one point I was stood, and I can't remember how I got onto the floor. I was somehow... I remember thinking I was up, I was standing, I wasn't. I was down on the floor flat on my back.
Yeah.
And then all I heard in this earphone was... And that's kind of what brought me back to again. Then they stood me up again, crossed my legs, and this went on and on. And it was just, like I said, it was a meat grinder just trying to break you down. Noise, then they take you out and you think that's it over. And the only way I thought, right, how am I going to figure out? I need to figure out what time it is. I knew I went in at 10 at dark. If it's light, so I put my hand up and I went, guard. And they thought I was going to quit. Or I think they must have thought I was going to quit.
Tap out.
But I need the loo. Right? And they're like, well, piss yourself. And I was like, no, I need a tam kite.
Yep. Number 2.
A number 2. So they've says, right. So I've sat. And they're like, right, keep your hands on your head. Do what you need to. When we tell you, sort yourself out. All right, okay, cool. This is a bit weird, but fine. So I remember pulling the hood up and thinking, right, I can see daylight.
Oh, yes.
Jackpot. This is brilliant. I'm not over. It's not over yet.
But it's the home straight, perhaps.
But I can see the daylight. And then it began to change. It was like, right, out, you, Faye, in the box, this round box. And then they started playing us off each other. You've told him that, you've told him that. And I thought, right, now just shut your mouth, don't say anything. And then it was a drown box. They put me and Faye in the drown box. And that's when Dilsky was like, right, if you don't tell us who you are, what you are, you're getting basically drowned. So they stuck this hose pipe in the box. And that's when we booted the door open and said, listen, we're British military. This is what we've been part of. Right, okay. And I think we just...
That's part of the game.
I think any longer we probably would have got pulled. We just took it right to the very cusp. And I'm glad we exposed ourselves as British military then, because allegedly it was a good choice. It was a good choice. It was a risk to life.
That was protocol, wasn't it?
Yeah, when it got dangerous or risk to life or risk to somebody else's life.
Grant, one experience.
Oh, it was amazing. It was amazing, and that was only a very small part of it. Do you know what I mean? Some of I'm trying to think of the small, just even the things that you guys never saw, that the administration having to help people's feet, the small things of people taking liberties. When people left, people were taking things out of people's boxes. That really demonstrated
Character.
Do you know what I mean? That person's now gone, I'm taking all that stuff for me, rather than saying, actually, his feet are wrecked. He might need the Vaseline or she might need the Vaseline. So let's give that a little bit more.
People acting their self-interest.
Yeah. And it was all about team play, but at the same time, you were trying to get to the end. And it was, what a great social experiment. Do you know what I mean? What a great, and essentially that's what it is. Do you know what I mean? It's really pushing you to your limits, both physiologically and physiologically. And SAS, whoever says the old ones are better, I can't compare it. What I can compare it to is Ultimate Hell Week. Very different experience, both physiologically and mentally, equally as tough. But this was by far the hardest thing. And at the same time, now I look at challenges and think, what am I going to do to compare this? You know what I mean? What can I do to replicate this feeling. It's almost like Ultimate Hell Week. Ultimate Hell Week, I had SAS Who Dares Wins to work towards. What do I do now? It's like nothing's, in my head, nothing can equate to that. Do you know what I mean? Because I learned so much from it and pushed myself, and it just encompassed everything that's on social media this now.
And I think I'm so glad that you got that, I'm not going to say validation, but that recognition that you were a success in the end, and that you managed to get the W.
Yeah.
And you managed to prove to yourself, like, I can do this, which matters so much. And I guess one of the questions that I had that I wanted to wrap up on was, as you approach 40, and you've done all these different roles, different experiences, I think you're very authentically you now as well, very comfortably.
Yeah.
What would success look like by the time you're 50?
I would love to have my brand, Social Fit, out there. It's about where strangers meet, friends are made. It's about back to basics with a bit of banter, and it's about bringing that, what we spoke about, that community, that whether it's that military community where you've got each other's back, that buddy system, seasonaire community. I want that feel. It's back in the day, fitness clubs felt like a club. It felt like a hotel. It felt like an escape. You know what I mean? And as much it's good to be competitive, it's that was people's out. Do you know what I mean? And I think often now fitness has become, including me, to a point where it's no longer an out. It's almost like it's another job to them. Do you know what I mean? Whereas I remember going to David Lloyd's, before it was David Lloyd's, it was Next Generation.
Yep.
And it felt like a holiday resort. Do you know what I mean? It was just like everyone had this really electric, positive, generally speaking, attitude where it was just exciting. And it was all forms of group exercise, whether it was walking, tennis, it was aerobics, legs, bums and tums.
Yep.
Do you know? And I would love to encompass different sections of lifestyle. And almost brand my lifestyle and allow me to enjoy my lifestyle and get paid for it, I suppose.
I think you've got the energy for it, Grant. You just need to find the vehicle and pull the right levers to get there.
Yeah, I hope so, and I think I will.
Yeah, I certainly feel it's all going in that direction, and I've loved today's conversation. I'm sure the listeners have as well. If they want to continue the conversation with you, where should they connect with you and head towards?
Social Fit World. It's on Instagram. I think that's the best page. So Social Fit World, all one word, on Instagram. Join us there and you'll get all the
Beautiful
information.
Stuff. That'll be linked to the show notes. Grant, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this.
And thank you to you guys, the listeners. I'll be back to speak to you again very, very soon.